It's Halloween and election season. Well, it was. But as I'm making this video, it's Halloween time and a week before the election. For me, Halloween is every day. As someone who's a part of the Wiccan, I think we should celebrate Halloween every single day. I wanted to do a video that relates to these things, and what's more Halloween than vampires? How about a real vampire that ran for president, who's also a wrestler, a veteran, a filmmaker, a Russian female, and is allegedly a pedophile. That's a lot of occupations. Who am I talking about? Who is this man of mystery? The Jonathon Sharkey universe is truly fascinating. His life is pretty well documented online, so the controversial allegations aren't just me assuming that and trying to defame the dude. There's quite the amount of evidence that points in that direction. This guy is infamous for filing lawsuits, so I just had to be clear about all of that. Now, let's start from the beginning. Jonathon was born April 2nd, 1964. If you were to look him up and find his usual Wikipedia page, it says he was a musician as early as the age of 5 years old. He joined the military at a young age. According to this article from ValorGuardians.com, in regards to his military service, it states, the MOS Jonathon worked in while in the Army was field artillery, mortars, infantry drill sergeant, Special Forces weapons, legal Kirk specialist, and a recruiter. Jonathon is also sniper trained and qualified. He still practices his sniper skills to this day. Jonathon is presently 100% service connected by the Department of Veterans Affairs as a result of his undergoing total left knee replacement, eventually leaving his military career due to a medical discharge, and went off to college afterwards. Throughout the 80s, Jonathon would pursue a career as a musician and a wrestler. He did find some mild success. There's a couple things from his IMDb page that I was able to find that I would say are the more notable successes he's had throughout his life. From November 1995 to November 1998, Jonathon worked as a wrestling trainer for Rocky Johnson at the Rocky Johnson Wrestling Academy in Tampa, Florida. One of the wrestlers Jonathon trained was Rocky Johnson's son, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. It also says that he's credited for doing some of the soundtrack from the 90s Nickelodeon show Ren and Stimpy. Clearly, Jonathon made this IMDb page himself, and in the trivia section, there's a very specific detail about Jonathon that he included. It says, Jonathon's former wife, Adriana, is only 16 days older than his daughter, Danielle. We're gonna talk more about the relationships Jonathon had a little later. Nothing too out of the ordinary, for now. From 1998 to 2002, Jonathon worked on Jeb Bush's campaigns for governor of Florida. He also was running for office during this time and continued to pursue political positions as the years go on. He ran for Congress in the state of New Jersey in 1999 to 2000 as a Republican, also ran in Indiana in 2000 while a part of the Reform Party this time. His final run for Congress was in Florida from 2001 to 2002, back again as a Republican. In 2004, he starts shooting big by running for President of the United States as an independent. 2006, Jonathon attempts a run for governor in the state of Minnesota, running as a member of VWP, which means the Vampires, Witches, and Pagans Party. This is a party that he founded himself. He ran for president in 2008 again as an independent. His latest and final run, as of right now, was in 2012 as a Republican. Jonathon holds a variety of vampiric stances on a personal level and even incorporating it into his runs for office. He has the more typical stances, like banning abortion, gay rights, specifically banning the teaching of evolution in public schools. His more extreme stances is what we're going to be focusing on. Jonathon believes that instead of jailing certain criminals, they should simply be personally, brutally tortured and impaled by him. He says, and I quote, "Certain criminals, instead of being put in jail, they should be brutally tortured and impaled. Upon them being found guilty of their crimes, I'll beat them, torture them, dismember them, and decapitate them." That doesn't just go for the typical street criminals. He even has called out former President George W. Bush, wishing to convict him and impale him. On an episode of The Situation with Tucker Carlson from January 16th, 2006, Jonathon made an appearance on the show, and what I see is one of the more notable moments that put Jonathon on the map, when he was attempting a run for governor of Minnesota.
Welcome back. I've covered a lot of political campaigns, and I can honestly say I have never seen a candidate run on a platform that includes impaling criminals in public. Come to think of it, I've never seen a vampire run for office either. All that changes tonight. Jonathon the Impaler Sharkey is a self-proclaimed vampire who wants to be the next governor of Minnesota. He's quite serious about it, actually. The Impaler joins us live tonight from Minneapolis. Mr. Sharkey, thanks a lot for coming on.
Tucker, please call me Jonathon. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing okay. I like to call you the Impaler. So you're a vampire. What does that mean, you're a vampire?
Yes, I'm a sanguinarian vampire. I'm a blood feeder.
Whose blood do you feed on, and how do you do that, and why?
Vampires, as you know, feed off of other people's energy. Some feed off of blood, some feed off of emotions. I choose to feed off of blood.
Well, I mean,
it's a very healthy thing to do.
It may be healthy, but I think it's gonna scare a lot of voters. I mean, the idea you could be elected and go around fighting people. I mean, where do you get the blood, and is it voluntary donations or what?
Oh, absolutely. Hollywood has been so kind to make a vampire, especially his feeding practices, to be so romantic and erotic. You'd be surprised how many women have come up to me, especially when I hang out in New York City, wanting to be bit. I'm talking sophisticated, very rich women who enjoy the lure of being romanced by a vampire.
Jonathon, I live in the area. I would not be surprised at all. But where do you get your blood?
It's usually when I'm involved with somebody, they are the person I feed from. I do not feed on men. I'm sorry, I just can't imagine myself wrapping my teeth around a man. However, women, you know, women are beautiful, and they have beautiful necks and beautiful arms, so however they want it, I will gladly oblige them, as long as I'm involved in them. You got to think about the transfer of blood.
Yeah, you do.
Something sexual, because you can get AIDS from doing it if you do it with the wrong person. It's changing.
You know, and they never say that in the safe sex materials I get. I mean, there are all sorts of, wear a condom, but they never say, if you are a vampire, think about whose blood you feed off of. And it seems to me an oversight. Now, how does being your vampirism fit into your campaign promises, your platform?
Well, you have to think about this. I'm also planning on running for the presidency. As a vampire, I am tough. I'm not going to back down to anybody. I'm not a wuss like George Bush.
Yeah.
I am not a communist. I am an American, as you can see from my shirt.
Yeah.
I'm not going to back down. I would
an American vampire in Minnesota. Yeah.
Amen. I would love to get a hold of bin Laden and impale him. Okay. I would also, as president, impale Bush, because I think he is nothing more than a communist in the Oval Office who has caused the death of innocent Americans in Saudi Arabia and in Iraq. I become president, I will have him tried, convicted, hopefully he will be convicted, and then I would impale him.
So you're not, I think what you're saying, Impaler, is that you're not simply a vampire, you're a right-wing vampire.
Correct. I'm an American. I'm not going to sell my people out.
I'm not against it. That's my favorite kind of vampire.
Well, there's more to
but
me
you're
than
also
just being a vampire.
And I know that, and that leads to my next question. Just for the sake of full disclosure, you're also a Satanist, because that could be a deal killer.
I am satanic.
I think,
like Lucifer did. I turned against God. I will not worship a God who causes the deaths of innocent children. I will not worship a God who allowed his only son to be used as a human sacrifice on the cross for what they believed the sins of the world, and why he was dying would turn around and forsake him on the cross.
Okay, so you're a more positive kind of Satanist. Now, finally, give me what's your campaign slogan? Because I can think of a number that might fit.
The New Deal for Minnesota.
Oh, come on. That's kind of...
I'm serious,
you're a
brother.
Satanist vampire wearing an American flag T-shirt, and a New Deal for Minnesota is the best you can come up with?
Well, you know, I'm starting to worry that Jon Stewart was right in what he said about you, brother. I mean, I'm starting to wonder...
Well, come on! That's the best you can do? I mean, I don't know.
It
How
worked
about
very
Jonathon
well for
Sharkey?
FDR.
He
If you
sucks.
know your history, FDR was one of the most beloved presidents this country ever had, and he was the one who came up with the New Deal.
I know, but this is a new generation of vampires running for office, and I just think you ought to give some more
First,
time
I'm
to
the
your
only
campaign
one,
slogan.
but besides being a vampire, I am an American, and that's what you have to focus on. Not my personal beliefs, but my platform, which includes going after drug dealers. And my way of going after drug dealers is not to turn around and put them in jail, but I'm actually going to go to Sicilian families and have them attack the drug dealers for me. And
which would cause its own immigration problems, by the way. But maybe we'll get more deeply into your policy when you win the primary. Mr. Sharkey.
There's no primary for me. I'm on the ballot November 7th.
All right. Well, good luck. Jesse Ventura can do it, but maybe you can. Thanks for joining us.
Okay, bye.
Honestly, once I got the gist of his beliefs, I wondered what happened down the line that led him to this position. I may have a reason. I can't completely confirm this, but there's certain things Jonathon does that leads me to believe this may very well be true. Jonathon has plenty of legal cases, and we're going to look into them in the next phase. There's just one thing I want to read to you that I found very interesting, and that may be his reasoning for his whole vampire persona. According to this Kiwi Farms thread, it says, Sharkey's ex-wife, a sassy and strong Cuban woman, found false strap-on breasts in his closet. He told her they were for a play he was in. Their kids were only infants. He kept his cross-dressing and sexual confusion a secret for a few more years, and then one day, she was taking a bath, and Jonathon came into the bathroom and told her he has something to talk to her about. He told her he had been taking female hormone pills because, well, he felt more like a woman than a man. No fucking shit, I say. He planned on having a sex change, but he didn't want it to end the marriage. He wanted to stay with her and be his lesbian lover. She told him to go drop dead. She told him she likes cock too much, and how the fuck could he consider doing this with 2 young children? She told him she wanted a divorce, climbed out of the bathtub, and began to beat the piss out of him with the back scrubber. Sharkey's troubles with women continued with a woman named Susan in 2001. They had a bitter relationship with lots of legal troubles, John even claiming she wrongfully sent him to prison. Susan was a drug addict, which is where John's desire to murder all drug users likely originates. He also credits her for being why he took up Satanism. So basically, his whole lifestyle and his homicidal delusions of justice could be seen as a petty attempt to get back at her, which is fucked beyond belief. Again, I can't confirm this completely, but I can confirm Susan does exist. He has filed lawsuits against her, and the sex change thing is interesting because in the documentary Painfully Blunt, which I will be going back and forth to, he does state that he did at one point wish to be castrated.
At one point you talked about having a sex change operation.
No, I never said sex change operation. Whoa. Castration is totally different than sex change.
I'm sorry.
I know you're a sorry person at times.
Okay. So why don't you talk about why you wanted to be castrated?
See, my ex-fiance / girlfriend,
Peter,
from Speedway, Iraqiana, literally drove me to the point where, though at times when she was drunk, especially one occasion, she literally tried to rip my testicles off. I do have the scars on my testicles to prove that. I'm not going to show it. This is hopefully a PG, if worse, R-rated movie. But, you know, since she wanted to literally just destroy my life and take away my manhood, I actually had it arranged down in Florida to be castrated, and I was gonna actually send her, you know, in the bottle, formaldehyde bottles, penis in my balls, and say, here, you wanted something bad, you can have it. I'd rather be in it than ever sleep with
Peter
again.
Jonathon is no stranger to the law, and not just for filing tons of lawsuits, but for also engaging in criminality. There's some very creepy shit Jonathon has gotten in trouble for. In 1995, he was arrested and charged with obtaining property by worthless check. Sharkey had found an internet girlfriend who he called his vampire in training, a 16-year-old girl from Rochester, Minnesota. The story goes they started dating online happily, but things turned sour down the line when Sharkey wrote on his blog, "For my conversation this morning with a member of your staff, I am writing to request your office investigate and then prosecute my former girlfriend for being part of a domestic terrorist group who have repeatedly threatened to assassinate me for almost 2 years now." The girl wanted to end the relationship, but
he doesn't like that.
Sharkey refused to let her end this relationship. She was so desperate to get him out of her life, she made the excuse that she's a member of an elite vampire hunting society. The girl's parents eventually found out about the two's relationship. Her father ordered Sharkey to cease contact with his daughter. So Jonathon did what any good man would do, and began harassing her and her whole family through email and phone. It was so out of hand, a police sergeant contacted Mr. Sharkey about the matter. The conversation between the vampire and the sergeant didn't really go anywhere. Mostly it involved Jonathon rambling about his love for the girl and his political goals. They ordered Mr. Sharkey for a court hearing. Prior to the hearing, he made the great decision to threaten the county attorney's office for this wrongful prosecution. This is a terrible injustice. He failed to make it to the court hearing, and a warrant was issued for Sharkey's arrest. In 2006, he was arrested on 2 outstanding warrants in the state of Indiana, along with fleeing the state in violation of a plea agreement.
We've done lots of interviews with Jonathon Sharkey, a.k.a. Rocky Flash, but none as bizarre as the one we did inside an Indianapolis jail. The vampire is wearing an orange jumpsuit now after being picked up in Minnesota on 2 arrest warrants, one for probation violation and another for escape. Didn't know about his arrest warrants? Well, that's not the only thing he's been hiding. You did not put out your whole past there, did you?
I didn't feel it was relevant until after.
Why wouldn't it be relevant to the people that you're asking to vote for you?
Because they were already showing how judgmental they were.
Then why would you want to run for governor of that state?
To change them. To show that a Satanist is better than Christians.
Using 2 different names, he's been arrested half a dozen times in 3 states. Each of them, he says, bogus busts, and therefore not necessary to disclose.
Did you tell the truth?
I didn't lie.
But you didn't tell the truth.
I didn't lie. I didn't.
You did not tell the entire truth, did you?
If the people weren't so judgmental, sure, I would have.
You chose to hide your past.
I didn't bring it forth. So yeah, if you want to call it hiding, we'll call it hiding.
You hid your past.
Okay, I hid my past.
Here's another detail Sharkey left out. Someone has convinced 4 different state and federal agencies he's dead. In fact, we showed him the program from his New Jersey funeral, November 7th, 2004, where his wife of 12 years, Lourdes Flash, told us she went to say goodbye.
And who am I talking to? I'm not talking to a dead man, am I?
I've died twice before.
Don't you think this sounds nuts to a rational person?
Well, let's put it this way. Jesus is not the only one who can raise somebody from the dead. Lucifer can too.
Around 2008, after buying a plot of land near Altamont, Tennessee, Jonathon attempted to build a vampire commune there, but it didn't last. His threats to impale former President George W. Bush didn't go unheard. Local law enforcement tracked him down and ended up arresting him for that, and not only charged for threatening Bush, but for also threatening an Indiana judge and the 16-year-old girl from Rochester, Minnesota.
If Jonathon Sharkey says he's a presidential candidate, a former wrestler, and a vampire. Tonight, he's in jail, charged with threatening the president and a court official. News Channel 5's Eric White just returned from Grundy County, where he talked with investigators about this bizarre case.
Rory, Jonathon Sharkey faces felony charges in Minnesota and Indiana. Neighbors say Sharkey showed up this summer. Since that time, he's left a lasting impression.
Just average type Joe. You know, just nice, very polite, never said a cuss word or anything.
When word spread that Sharkey wanted to turn this plot of land into a commune for fellow vampires, neighbor Don Campman knew trouble was brewing.
These people up here are very, religious, and they don't want change, and vampires they don't need.
On Saturday, local law enforcement arrested Sharkey for felony warrants in Minnesota and Indiana. The charges include making threats against the President of the United States and an Indiana judge.
Grundy County Sheriff's investigators may never know why Sharkey moved into their county. But with the information they've gathered so far, they've come to at least one conclusion.
In my 18 years on top of the mountain, one of the most bizarre that we've dealt with.
When investigators arrested Sharkey, they confiscated 2 rifles and this wooden stake with steel spikes. For neighbors,
it's just been kind of a mess, and of course we're kind of caught in the middle. We sold the place to him, and it's just causing more trouble for me and my other neighbors, and I wish they hadn't sold it to him now.
While in jail, someone set fire to a piece of Sharkey's property.
He would end up pleading guilty in the state of Minnesota, being sentenced to 180 days in jail. He wouldn't get out right away, though. He would continue to remain in jail, awaiting to be extradited, facing charges for threatening that Indiana judge. She says, quote, "I hope he lives out the rest of his life with nothing but misery and shame." Her father had something to say as well. "I would like this to be the end of this, although I fear that it may not be." As far as I know, he wouldn't bother her anymore, but she most certainly would not be the last person Sharkey would groom and harass. One of Jonathon's most notorious cases is not as amusing as the previous ones. In February of 2010, Jonathon had been corresponding with a troubled 16-year-old girl on MySpace by the name of Paige Brewer, who also believed herself to be a vampire. They had fallen in love. He was so in love, he ended up proposing to her via YouTube video. I sadly do not have the proposal video. It appears to be lost. I searched everywhere for this video. I promise, I really wanted to see it myself. Thankfully, this old Gawker article gives a good description of what went on in the video, at least. 16-year-old Paige Brewer ran away from her mother's rural Minnesota home 6 months ago. According to Minneapolis City Pages, Paige was living with her grandmother when she met the Impaler on a vampire comment board last month. After a whirlwind cyber romance, Sharkey proposed with a video in which he shows off his Wiccan tats in what appears to be a Valentine-themed corner of a daycare center, with the love ballad from Beauty and the Beast straining softly in the background. Incredibly creepy. A few days later, on Valentine's Day, Sharkey decided to fly out to where she was located in Minnesota. He said, quote, "I am arriving in Minneapolis tomorrow. I would have stated to all women of Minnesota, cover your necks with garlic. However, the only neck my fangs will be in is Paige's neck. Otherwise, she will make me a toothless vampire." Paige's mother, understandably, was completely panicked knowing her daughter has been essentially kidnapped by a pedophilic satanic vampire, going as far as to say Sharkey has brainwashed her daughter. Jonathon claimed he was just trying to protect her until Paige is legally emancipated from her mother. While in hiding, the couple continued to interact on city pages, MySpace, and various other vampire forums where Jonathon would constantly argue. During this manhunt for the two, a child protection agent had reached out to Paige through a vampire forum she was using. Surprisingly, the agent was able to convince the vampiric couple to show up for a legal brokering meeting in Minnesota. Fast forward to the meetup. Sharkey and Paige arrived inside a Faribault, Minnesota community center. What could possibly go wrong? Female police officer wrestled Paige away. Jonathon was told by the police to either leave the state or be arrested. He was served an order of protection from Paige's mother and took a bus back to New Jersey. The both proclaimed they never had sex during their runaway period. As crazy as Jonathon is, maybe there's one thing we can relate with him on. A more wholesome side of him. Nope, that's all over the place as well. You probably guessed that since we talked a little about it earlier. So what is his family life like? What kind of relationships has he had? I'm gonna do my best to keep track of them all. This topic can be a bit tricky since there's a good chunk of the women that he's been with not even existing. He's had only 2 wives he was legally married to. His first serious relationship was back in the 80s with a woman named Lauren. They eventually had a son by the name of Matthew. Around this time, Jonathon's grandmother ended up passing away. To Sharkey, this was a life-altering moment. He says this is when his turn to the dark side truly began. 3 weeks after her death, he ended up leaving Lauren for not being compassionate enough about the passing of his grandmother. His hatred and resentment was just too powerful. He wanted an annulment and asked her to leave his apartment with his son. He eventually found another girlfriend by the name of Angela in 1987, but ended up kicking her out for hating his son Matthew. Let's get to the real good stuff here. Lourdes Flash. Lourdes was Sharkey's legally married wife from 1990 to 1999. They had 2 children, one named John Sharkey Jr., and a daughter named Danielle Sharkey. These two have a lot of history together. Out of all the relationships he's been in, she's probably the one that dropped the most bombshells. The stories and allegations are all according to Lourdes. She publicly discussed all of this in the other documentary called Impaler. Their first 3 years of marriage seemed normal enough. They attended church regularly and was well known and a liked guy. Things eventually started to shift when Jonathon's obsession with vampires really came into play. It went so far to where he bit her on the neck very hard. Lourdes, of course, was confused and baffled by this behavior.
He started developing this obsession with Dracula and his ancestor, and he started saying that he was a vampire.
Says he ever tried to blood feed with you?
In about our 3rd year of marriage, yeah.
How'd that go down?
He bit my neck. He bit me in the neck, and it was hurting me. So I elbowed him, and I said, "What in the hell is wrong with you?"
While you were married, did you attend church regularly?
Yes, we did. We actually did.
What, was he well liked?
Yes.
When with Jonathon, Lourdes noticed he had many photo albums that documented a lot of his life. A photo that stood out to her was of Jonathon in a large cast all the way from his waist to his ankles. What had caused the serious injury was from his mother throwing him down a flight of stairs.
Because from what I saw when I met him, he had over 7, 8 or more photo albums of every day of his life. I saw one picture in his photo albums where he had a cast from the waist down, and it covered both his legs. So it was from waist to both ankles. His mother had thrown him down the stairs. He destroyed their photos.
His mother ended up dying from childbirth complications when attempting to deliver his now deceased sister, Kathleen. His father would beat the mother, ultimately causing the miscarriage.
He had a sister born named Kathleen, right? Mm-hmm. Can you explain to me what you've heard about that?
Okay, as a matter of fact, I have her death certificate.
You have her death?
I have possession of her death certificate. His mother went into premature labor, and she gave birth to a baby that was born weighing 1 pound, 8 ounces only. And of course, the baby lived only a couple of hours, and the baby died. The father beat the mother and caused her to miscarriage. His mother left a very large inheritance, and it was to go to Jonathan, John, Rocky, whatever. And instead, during the last weeks of his life, of her life, she changed it from John to her sister, and then from her sister, she changed it to John's son from a previous marriage. I hate to think that that boy is even going to see this film, because he thinks his father is dead. A letter that she wrote to him prior to her death, where she stated, "And to you, John, I leave you $1 because that's what you are worth to me." And Rocky left his first wife and that infant when he was 6 months old for the other girl, simply because the girl was a virgin and he wanted to bet a virgin.
In the Law and Order part of the video, when Sharkey was confronted by a news team while incarcerated, it was discovered he has even went as far as to fake his own death.
Rocky made us all believe that he was dead.
Jonathan had everyone believe that he was dead. How?
He just informed everybody through a friend that he had passed away.
So were you around when he had his suicide attempt? What was it, 120 Quaaludes that he took?
He didn't take anything.
It never happened?
It never happened. It was all a lie. It was all a make-up, make-believe. Another one of Rocky, Jonathan, Kathleen, whatever you want to call him, fantasies that he tried to make everybody believe.
Why do you think that he makes things up?
To get attention. He wants to be the center of attraction. That's one of the reasons I left him.
With all the abuse Jonathan endured, this eventually made him destroy all photos of his parents. He hated his parents so much, he signed an affidavit to disown his own daughter Danielle when she was just 2 years old for looking too much like his mother.
When Danielle was 2.5 years old, he actually signed an affidavit where he disowned her because she looked like his mother.
Both of his children have some heartbreaking things to share.
One time he kept hitting me, and I got upset, and I was afraid that he was gonna do something else. So I tried to sneak out the window with my little brother, and he caught us, and JJ blamed it on me, and he threw me down a flight of stairs and put a knife to my throat, saying, "If you ever try to do that again, I'll slit your throat."
Do you love your father at all?
Yes. I love him, but...
You love him?
Mm-hmm. Of course, he's my father. I have to.
Do your friends know?
About what?
You have a father named Jonathon Sharkey, who's a satanic vampire running for governor of Minnesota? Nope. You don't want him to know either, do you?
Nope.
It's better that way.
Yep.
Does it embarrass you?
Yeah, kind of, sort of. Because I hang out as a bunch of kids from my church, and if I tell them that they might not want to hang out with me anymore, they're going to think that I'm a satanic person.
Are you scared of your father?
Yeah.
Do you miss him?
Kind of. How, he always used to be funny and stuff and act stupid at times. It just made me laugh.
You actually did have some good times with your father.
He's taken me to, a bunch of races. He taught me how to drive and stuff.
Was he loving? Did he hug you? And
yeah.
Did he tell you he loved you a lot?
Yeah.
Do you think there's a different person inside of him? This
Yeah.
cat that they speak of?
Yeah. I think that, if he wanted to, that he could be nice, and if he didn't want to, then He'd be mean.
Is there anything you'd want to say to him? See him right now?
Did I miss him there? I love him.
Lourdes was fed up with all of this, and a big reason why she ended up leaving him for good was due to Sharkey's desire to dress like a woman.
One of the reasons that I left him was because Rocky had told me that he felt more like a woman than a man, and that he was going to get a sex change. But what was even more of a shock was seeing him arrive from Indiana dressed as a woman. This is when he went fugitive from Indiana. And when he took off his jacket, when he got out of the car, I noticed he had...
Stuffed bra?
He had boo-boo. The man actually had boobs.
Like,
he was wearing a bra.
A bra, was it stuffed? Or
No.
He had female breasts?
Yes, he does.
Implants? Or
no, they can't. I don't think they're implants. I don't know what I don't know.
Was it obvious that
he was a man?
Yeah.
No. When he wears female underwears, female panties, he kind of like tucks it between his legs. I think the man is basically mentally ill. Needs a lot of psychiatric help. And if you ask me, I think there's a dual personality there somewhere. Because there have been times when I have felt that I have been dealing with two different people. Completely two different people.
one being Jonathan?
Yeah, and the other one being Kathleen. There's no such person as Kat. Kat is Kathleen, and Kat and Kathleen are Rocky. He had been physically abused by his mother. At one time, he told me that he had been sexually abused by his father. And that his mother, after losing the baby, Kathleen, had started dressing him as a girl. When he first told me, I was shocked, because I know that things like that do happen, unfortunately, to children in this world, and that I was shocked that it could have happened to him, because at that time I loved him.
Sharkey had another wife named Susan Holtzclaw. There wasn't a lot of info I can obtain on these two, but no surprise, it ended up in Sharkey attempting to sue her like he does to just about every other woman he's with. Spree Moneypenny Sharkey. This is another interesting one. We have some details listed in court documents between these two. So Jonathon Sharkey versus Spree Moneypenny Sharkey. On April 13th, 2007, pro se plaintiff Jonathon A. Sharkey, aka The Impaler, filed this diversity action against his wife, Spree Moneypenny Sharkey, and his mother-in-law, Sandra Moneypenny. In the complaint, plaintiff asserts that his wife engaged in domestic violence, adultery, and defamation of character. He asserts that his mother-in-law intimidated him, defamed his character, and harassed him. He seeks monetary damages. Mr. Sharkey, 42, claims he and Spree met on the internet in August of 2005. Spree was 17 years old at the time. He contends that although he was quite taken by Spree, he told her to contact him again when she turned 18. On October 4th, 2006, Spree once again initiated contact with Mr. Sharkey via the internet. He claims they began dating on October 9th, 2006. He proposed to her 3 weeks later on October 28th, 2006, and moved to Ohio on November 2nd, 2006. He claims that he and Spree were married on November 4th, 2006. The honeymoon period of their marriage was short-lived. Mr. Sharkey claims that 4 days after the wedding, Spree attacked him after she overheard Mr. Sharkey on the telephone saying that upon becoming president, he would impale his father-in-law, James Moneypenny. He further contends that she became angry with him on several other occasions and hit him with a Star Wars lightsaber. He notes another occasion in which he was very ill and his new wife walked out of their apartment. He states on January 26, 2007, she punched him in the nose. Mr. Sharkey states that his wife was unfaithful to him from the date of their marriage and was not acting like a potential first lady. He claims she continued the role play on the internet with men. Spree allegedly told Mr. Sharkey on February 19, 2007, that she was going to go to West Virginia to visit an aunt who had suffered a stroke. She was gone from the marital residence until February 28, 2007. He claims he later discovered that she never left Brunswick, Ohio. On February 25, 2007, during her absence from the marital home, she used a video web camera to expose herself to a man on the internet. She allegedly began dating a man from Idaho on the internet on February 28, 2007. Mr. Sharkey claims that he told Spree he was moving to New Jersey the following day. She allegedly asked him to stay, and they attempted reconciliation on March 1, 2007. Later that evening, however, she went to a goth club with 3 male friends and did not return home to the marital residence. In addition to infidelity, Mr. Sharkey contends that Spree made statements that made him look foolish. She posted negative comments about him on the... In addition to infidelity, Mr. Sharkey contends that Spree made statements that made him look foolish. She posted negative comments about him on the Witch Wars 2 website. He claims she also told him she was pregnant. He claims he released this information to the media during his presidential campaign. He states he discovered on April 6, 2007, that she was not pregnant. Mr. Sharkey alleges that his mother-in-law, Sandra Moneypenny, hated him from the day he and Spree became involved. He claims she assaulted him by lighting a cigarette in his presence. He states he asked her to stop and she hit the right side of his nose with her cigarette, causing him pain. He claims that in October of 2006, when he was arranging his arrival in Cleveland for the wedding, Sandra called law enforcement officials in an attempt to keep him from coming to Brunswick. He contends she continually referred to him as a pedophile. Mr. Sharkey claims that Sandra continues to interfere with his relationship with Spree. He states that on December 28, 2007, he went to O'Hare's bar to retrieve his cell phone and his vampire cross from Spree. He indicates he brought several members of the Brunswick Police Department with him. Mr. Sharkey alleges that Sandra interfered with the officers' attempts to speak with Spree. He further states that his mother-in-law threatened to have him charged with stalking and harassment if he returned to Cleveland. Finally, Mr. Sharkey alleges that she mocked his membership in vampires, witches, and pagans against impaired driving. Mr. Sharkey asserts 4 claims against Spree. He contends that she committed domestic violence and adultery, defamed his character, and subjected him to emotional distress. He asserts that Sandra also committed domestic violence, violated his right of pursuit of happiness, defamed his character, and harassed him. He seeks $4 million in punitive damages from Spree and $2 million in damages from Sandra. Around 2006 to 2008, Sharkey revealed an interesting relationship he had back in 1988. To sum it up, he met a woman named Kathleen at a family member's house. He was introduced to her and began to engage in a sexual relationship with her, only later on to find out she was actually his half-sister. Spoiler alert, she doesn't exist. Jonathon would make fake accounts online pretending that this is a real person. The photos of Kathleen were just photos of a fashion model named Luciana Curtis.
Explain more to me about the relationship you have with your half-sister.
My father ended up getting divorced from her mother, Lee. I forgot about her, and what ended up happening was back in 1988, while I was over a relative's house taking a swim, this girl was a friend of my cousin's, came in, and I got introduced to her. I thought she was very hot and sexy. I am not one for asking a girl her last name or anything like that, so I took her home, and one thing led to another. I have no regrets, none whatsoever. the night of, June 30th to July, as the morning was turning over to July 1st. In Florida, Kat and I did have a ham fasting.
Can you explain exactly what that means and the process?
It's a pagan ritual of marriage.
Julie was his partner who we see in the Impaler documentary. Julie has always felt she was a vampire herself, of course, making Jonathon the perfect man to be with. This is what weird, pagan-y, vampire-y thing Julie had to say about when her and Jonathon first met.
What was it like when you first met? Were there sparks? Were there when you physically
when
saw each other?
When I first saw him, I was... How would you explain it? This is going to sound corny, but the sun and the moon rose in that moment.
What I can't get over is how much she looks like Sharkey. I don't recall anyone in the film pointing this out, but she looks almost identical to Sharkey. It totally is tripping me out. Julie was a bus driver who ended up getting fired, and she claimed she was fired for being a pagan.
A self-proclaimed witch says she's the victim of a witch hunt. Julie Carpenter says she lost her job as a school bus driver because of her religious beliefs.
I made friends. They were telling me about, hockey games that they won.
Julie Carpenter says she was never even disciplined in her 5 years driving bus before the company fired her Friday.
They fired me because I'm a pagan. They fired me for my religious beliefs because I'm not Christian.
Carpenter's husband announced candidacy for governor last week as a vampire, saying wife Julie was a witch. Days later, Princeton schools requested her removal as driver, saying she was not a role model, but never demanded her firing.
No, we never said that. It was our recommendation that she not drive school bus.
She was accompanied by her 3 children, Jenna, Christopher, and her oldest, Peter. Her oldest son was quite unhappy with the living situation he was trapped in. Here he recounts abusive events Sharkey and his great mother put him through.
Me and him got in a couple fights, and one time I had to call the cops on him. And I had to go to my friend's house for the rest of the day. He kind of got real close and was talking bad about my dad. And he was asking me if I wanted to go outside and finish this because he was in front of me saying bad stuff about my dad, and then he had his fist clenched and stuff, threatening to hit me. Then he threatened to kill me once. That's when I went into my room and called the cops.
Is he the first Satanist you've ever met?
Yeah.
Since he announced his candidacy, has it been chaotic? Has it been different? Has it been just the same? Like, how has life changed for you? Your mom's fired.
I think I get more attention in school from people, and it's not always good attention. I'm kind of needed around here more because I need to watch my little brother and sister while they go do stuff. And yeah, that's basically it.
Do you think Jonathan's been good for your mom?
Yeah, my mom seems to be doing good with him. She quit smoking. She's been doing. I think she's really been doing a lot better. I find witchcraft a little weird, like how they have all these, like about the stuff in my mom's altar, how they can like charge rocks and stuff. Find it a little weird. From what I've heard from my dad and stuff, she's always thought that she was a vampire and could do stuff.
Could you ever see yourself just hopping in a car, or sticking your thumb out and hitchhiking and just leaving?
Yeah, I could. I've really wanted to move to California for a while, but I don't know about leaving Minnesota.
Is it because of family and friends, or?
That's what's holding me back from moving to my dad's. Most of my friends in school.
Megan Cochran is a woman Jonathon was with and sued in 2010 for having a miscarriage, seeking $100,000 in compensation. Rakil Dolgorukov Tepish Sharkey, aka Rachel. Rachel is another one of Sharkey's made-up girlfriends. He runs a blog and has a Facebook where he gloats about himself speaking as Rachel. It makes him sound even more insane. The pictures Jonathon uses of Rachel are really just of a girl named Masha from this Russian bride site, and she's not even from Russia, she's from the Ukraine. People have asked Jonathon to post pictures of the two, but Sharkey has never done that. There are no pictures of Jonathon and Rachel together. He felt that they're valuable pictures, and surely someone from the press would pay a large amount of money for these photos. That's his reasoning for not sharing them. Finally, his most recent and current wife is Oksana, who I briefly brought up. They both are involved in race car driving and politics. Not for certain, but I've heard here and there that she's a mail order bride. I could go even further, and I probably have missed some people because he just has been with a lot of people and has made up a lot of people. But we're gonna end it there. We need to move on. But there's one thing I want to add, one last thing I want to add. One of Sharkey's exes wrote a long exposing post on Facebook shedding light on his disturbing behavior we'd only see behind closed doors. I wasn't able to conclude which of his exes wrote this, but I feel it's worth including. When Jonathon's wife left him at the end of their marriage, he rang her and said he had taken a bottle of pills. Thinking she would run to him to save him, instead, she called the police and sent them. When they got there, they found him in the pool wearing a woman's bathing suit and sporting heavy makeup. They came back and told her, suffice to say, she sobbed with laughter. Big brave Jonathon was a violent child abuser. At first he was smart about it and he left no bruises, but then he started to get careless and his ex-wife started to see bruises on their kids. As the kids were rarely clumsy and the bruises were in unusual locations, his ex-wife and stepdaughter concocted a plan to catch him in the act. By pretending to leave the house and leaving him with the kids, but then sneaking back in quietly after a few minutes. That's how they caught him. When she opened the living room door, Jonathon Sharkey was stepping on his 6-year-old son's head. His ex-wife went ballistic and attacked him for such a heinous act. He then hit his ex-wife after he tried to grab his stepdaughter by the throat for her part in helping catch him in the act of hurting the kids. After the stepdaughter avoided the chokehold, Jonathon Sharkey threw a punch, which his ex-wife stepped in the way of, collecting her in the jaw. She told him he punched like a pussy and began to beat the piss out of him. As any decent, sane person would, nothing better than bashing a bully. It was then the stepdaughter opened the front door, and as he had weak knees, a huge fat gut, and no balance, they both pushed him through the door, then shoved the son of a bitch down a flight of stairs. He landed on the bottom like a twisted puppet. His ex-wife prayed he was dead. He also abused the stepchildren regularly when they were younger. He would lift them up by their throats and pin them against the wall and tell them if they told their mom, he would kill them. As his ex-wife was constantly working, as Jonathon never worked and instead relied on his government disability pension, he was very often alone with the children. Because of the threats, they never said anything. That was until he also dangled their daughter, his own child, out of a 3rd-story window by one leg, and told her that if she told her mom, he would throw her out of the window and say it was an accident, that she had fallen out while he was cleaning the house. The last thing I'd like to go over is Jonathon's volatile behavior online. I always try having the people I do videos about involved with the internet in some way, and he has quite the reputation. Sharkey is known for talking shit all over the internet. He will silence any of his haters, whether it's in a comment section of a news article regarding your recent kidnapping of a teenage girl, vigorously defending his position in the situation, or if it's talking to yourself as your fake girlfriend. Jonathon will do it, and it's unbelievably obvious. A good but simple example of Sharkey silencing the critics was on the website ValorGuardians.com. The article that was wrote about Sharkey just slammed him. Sharkey, watching from the sidelines, could no longer sit and watch. He must fight. Now, since you cunts want to act up, let's act up. I know where you live, so here's a challenge to you both and any other cunt that works for you. Being from a descendant of the greatest ruler ever, Prince Vlad Tepes, aka the Impaler, I challenge you and those who work for you to a battle to the death in 2 months at Fort Dix, New Jersey. In Jersey, the weak are killed and eaten. We are the greatest, best, and most badass state in the Union. It will be on the lines of the Deadliest Warrior. Then he posts a link to a Deadliest Warrior clip of Sun Tzu versus Vlad the Impaler. No firearms, though. Medieval weapons. I will have U.S. Secret Service agents I know from Jersey be monitors of the battle, because I don't trust you domestic terrorists. Like Vlad, I will beat you, torture you, impale you, then dismember you. I will decapitate you all, and your heads will be used that night for a satanic ritual. My God will be praised the day. If you do not accept my challenge in 24 hours, I will forward this email to the media, Soldier of Fortune magazine, Colonel Brown knows me by one of my other names, veterans magazines, then I will come to Ms. with a film crew, I looked that up, I think that's a magazine or something, and call you out. When you step outside your home with cameras rolling, I will go Jersey on you and beat the fuck out of you. If you refuse to come outside, I will show all the world what a bunch of cowardly little fucks you are. I await your response. In Lucifer's name, do Cividania. I think that's how you say it. Ne sangue. Most of the strange things Jonathon posts come from his Facebook. For one, he has an odd desire to have twins. With his twin posting, there's an example where it looks like he took a picture of a child on a school bus, and the caption reads, "Whose daughter goes to this school? I'm just curious," which is not creepy. Don't forget about the growth hormone posts. Knowing Sharkey, there's probably some weird reasoning for it. Another display of his heroism would be a post displaying a life insurance policy for his fictional child, while his actual child is in the comments of that exact post asking where their cut is. He doesn't appear to use YouTube anymore, with the last video on his channel, Impaler Films Incorporation, being posted over 9 years ago. What cracks me up about this little intro for his videos, it says, "I am Prince Vlad the Impaler and I approve of this movie." That makes me laugh because I love when older people and, boomers, they call YouTube videos movies, and I can't ignore that. As the years go on, Sharkey has seemed to have not been as active as he once was in the early 2000s. Whether that's by choice or just being irrelevant, this means one thing: where is he now? As of 2021, Sharkey hasn't been in the limelight as he was when he was running for office. You can find him on Facebook where he gives his political takes and shares his newest obsessions, race car driving and hockey. Sharkey has appeared to tone down the vampire shtick, at least publicly. I'm not sure if he continues it in his personal life. Him and Oksana still remain together as of today. His 15 minutes of fame have ran out and have been out for a while now. The only way I can see him making headlines again is for either criminality or if his wife runs for president of Ukraine, which he states he'll be directly involved in. Other than that, that's where I think his story wraps up for now. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you to Richard Mullinex for reaching out and sharing your history with Sharkey. It helped me out a ton with researching for this video. Make sure to follow me on Twitter to keep up with what I'm doing next. If you're feeling generous, subscribe to my Patreon, and I think that'll do it. I never want to do a video about vampires ever again.